Hey guys, Braden Mower here. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how you can lose body fat and keep it off eternally without restrictive dieting, without having to give up your social life, and without having to spend hours in the gym. So you're going to want to stick around to the end of this video. I can't wait to show you my eternal fat loss mechanism, which has helped myself and hundreds of others lose body fat, keep it off. We're able to enjoy our social life. We're able to enjoy the foods that we love. We train in a way that is accommodable to our lifestyle and the time that we have available. And most importantly, we have overcome the never-ending roller coaster of losing body fat, gaining it back, losing body fat, gaining it back, this never-ending roller coaster of yo-yo dieting. I want to make something clear before we proceed. I help men and women of faith who are driven, who are high-performing, aspire to change, and are coachable. If you're lazy, you're not coachable, and you don't aspire to be personally excellent, I encourage you to go watch some of my other content and then come back to this video. Now, you're probably watching this video, and I'm willing to bet that you've likely been very restrictive with your nutrition. And I'm here to tell you that with this method, that's not the case at all. I've also felt the pressure to give up your social life and not enjoy the fruits of the season, whether it be barbecues, nights out, vacations, holidays, etc. And if nutrition, being healthy, training, if all those things feel like a chore to you, then you've come to the right place. Because with this approach, it's not only effective, it's actually sustainable long-term and is accommodable to your lifestyle. Since you're watching this video, I just assume you've likely tried a number of fad diets, name diets, elimination diets, or whatever you want to call them. Maybe some sort of workout program like P90X or 6 weeks to shreds. There's so many different approaches out there with training and nutrition. And I'm just willing to bet that maybe you have seen results from these, but you just weren't able to maintain and sustain these over the long haul. And I'm here to tell you that if you fall into that boat, that's okay. And I would say the number one reason why you couldn't stick with that forever is because it's not accommodable to your lifestyle. Not one size to training, nutrition, to lifestyle intervention fits all. Because keto worked for Sally does not mean it's going to work for you. Just because carnivore worked for Bubba, the construction worker, does not mean that it's going to work for you. We can be practical, but we also have to be realistic. And that's where most people go wrong, is they are not realistic with the approaches that they are taking. Now, we operate differently here with the eternal fat loss method, not one size fits all. God made us all unique. Therefore, that approach with each individual in regards to nutrition, training, cardiovascular activity, etc., is completely customized. And you may be thinking, it's impossible to lose body fat and keep it off eternally without having to give up the foods that I love, without having to give up my social life, without having to spend hours in the gym. And to be honest, myself and hundreds of others thought the same thing before we were introduced to the eternal fat loss method. So if you're stuck on this never-ending roller coaster of making progress only to lose it all, you've come to the right place. Now, before we dive straight into the value, I just want to assure you that losing body fat and keeping it off for life is possible without hating the foods that you're eating, without giving up your social life, without spending hours in the gym. All these things are possible, and I want to share my story. So I got into fitness at the age of 18. I competed in bodybuilding for about 6 years. Unfortunately, I have a long history of crash dieting. I would get incredibly lean for these bodybuilding shows. And right after the show, I would gain the weight back so rapidly. And unfortunately, I dealt with body dysmorphia and even disordered eating. So I know what it feels like to be caught on that never-ending roller coaster of losing weight and working so hard, hating the food that I'm eating, getting this progress and only to gain it all back. And that was very discouraging. And it played a really big toll on my mental health. And it took me several years to break out of this cycle. Thanks to the eternal fat loss method, I enjoy the food that I eat. Let me rephrase that. I love the food that I eat. I'm not restrictive at all. I enjoy barbecues. I enjoy nights out. I enjoy vacations, weddings, birthdays, all of these social events, and I still make progress. I have awesome health markers. I keep track of my blood work regularly and stay on top of certain indicators that indicate good health. I have above average performance in the gym and in my life thanks to the eternal fat loss method. And by the grace of God, I overcame the never-ending roller coaster of losing weight only to gain it all back several times over several years, and I've had the privilege to help hundreds of others do the same. Now, here's only a handful of the hundreds of transformations that I've had the privilege to produce. Lots of high-performing men and women of faith who not only lost body fat, but they were able to keep it off eternally. Nobody here was restricted. Nobody here hopped on some sort of fad diet or weird workout program that lasted 6 weeks and guaranteed that they would be swole and in amazing shape afterwards, whatever the crazy claims are. Each individual here had a unique approach, but the same principles applied with the eternal fat loss method. Anthony Warren over here, this is one of my long-term clients. This is a 6-month transformation. He lived a very high stress lifestyle. He's a real estate investor, very busy, a very, very driven individual. Was dealing with a whole lot of issues out there, very high stress. He didn't have a lot of structure with his nutrition. He hated the foods that he was eating. He didn't like the training approach that he took. And with the eternal fat loss method, in 6 months, he went from 250 to 205. And this picture here is 2 years ago. He's actually still at 205 and looks way better than that. But again, the cool part is he was actually able to sustain the results. Down here in the bottom, this is Savannah Grasser. She's actually a long-term client of mine as well, been with me for 5 years. When she came to me, she had just gotten out of college. She was a collegiate soccer player, had dealt with a lot of issues with her nutrition, had taken a lot of extreme approaches with training and nutrition that were effective, but just weren't sustainable. And with the eternal fat loss method, 5 years later, she is in a place where she is thriving. She has balance. She enjoys nights out. She doesn't restrict herself with her nutrition, and she absolutely loves the approaches she has with training. And the last one I'll mention here is Cody McIntyre. He's a physical therapist, and this is about a 30-pound transformation. When he first came to me, he was skeptic about joining the program because he did not want to give up the foods that he loves. He loves going out to eat with his mother. He loves taking her out to eat to all of their favorite restaurants. And guess what? We incorporated that into his plan. I just wanted to share a handful of testimonials here. These are messages that I get, group messages, messages on Instagram, some written testimonials. I mean, there's just many more than this, and I couldn't fit them all on the page. But one that stands out to me is, nutritional mindset. It's a game changer. It gets addictive. Most people are stuck in this, and maybe you're stuck in this, I'm on a diet mindset. Well, listen, a diet is not something that you go on. Your diet is your habitual pattern of eating and nothing more. And once you break out of that mindset, everything changes. But again, the approach that you take, it not only needs to be effective, but it needs to be accommodable for you. And that's the only way that you are going to be compliant. Last one I'll mention, if you look here below, you'll learn a lot about me with this message. I'm very much against politicizing nutrition where people are on one extreme end or the other. I'm pretty much agnostic with nutrition. It's not like Jesus where there's only one route to salvation. There are infinite routes. And again, I'm going to go with what's best for you. And I'm very much against these dogmatic approaches that say this way is the only way, because that is just simply not the case at all. And now for the eternal fat loss method. Now, what is it? We're going to start with our 4 pillars, beginning with our 3 pillars of nutrition, which is opting for high quality nutrient-dense foods, prioritizing protein when we're building out meals, and being mindful of our calorie intake. That is the first pillar, which is broken up into 3 pillars. We're going to talk about sprints, what cruises are, and the most important pillar, mindset, looking at food as fuel. And again, by the end of this, you're going to know exactly how to implement this. That way you can actually lose body fat, keep it off, enjoy foods you love, not be so restrictive, not be on some weird program, and also enjoy your social life at the same time. Now, unfortunately, most people are on a diet or on a program. Think about that for a second. It's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's all or nothing, unfortunately. And that's not a mindset to adopt when it comes to prioritizing our health, our well-being, our performance, physique development, whatever the goal might be. That's not the mindset that we want to adopt. Fad diets, they're not necessary. Listen, your diet does not need a name. Your diet is simply the food that you put into your mouth. Everybody is on a diet, technically. I believe I've already said that before. Not one size fits all. What works for Billy's not going to work for Bo. Just because keto, carnivore, intermittent fasting works for somebody you know, that doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. Again, we have to be realistic here. We can't just be practical with it. All of these diets, there's one common denominator, and that's a calorie deficit. Again, this isn't like Jesus where that's the only route to salvation. With nutrition, there's multiple routes. And with the eternal fat loss method, we give you the tools to cultivate your own route. It's the same concept with working out, whether it be cardiovascular activity or resistance training. Some people are looking to build muscle. Some people are looking to build strength. Some people are looking to be functional. Some people are looking to be athletic. There's a wide variety of goals when pertaining to training in general. And I don't have a program. I don't have a one size fits all with training either, because again, there are infinite ways to produce the same outcome, and it needs to be accommodable to the individual's goals and the individual's lifestyle. So just to sum this up before we get into the meat of the pillars, as you can see, most people, and you're likely aware of this, most people are on some sort of extreme program, extreme diet that they absolutely hate. Diet and exercise is viewed as a chore, and that's not what we do here. All right, on to the 4 pillars, starting with our 3 pillars of nutrition. The first pillar being consuming high quality, nutrient dense foods. Now, when it comes to losing body fat and keeping it off eternally, 80 to 90%, I would say, of your diet should consist of wholesome, minimally processed food. So if it came from an animal, if it came from the ground, as the way God intended it to be consumed, then it's free game. I'm not saying that you can't have some of the ultra processed stuff in moderation. Now, when I say the foods you love, that's typically what I'm pertaining to. You can have that stuff in moderation. Scientifically speaking, yes, as long as you're within your calorie range, you can have those foods. There's nothing wrong with it. Again, going back to the mindset of saying, I can't have that or I'm good. Again, you can have these things. Nothing is off limits within the eternal fat loss method. Unlike most people who are doing something extreme, they're sticking to the commandments of a named diet. They're labeling foods as bad, and that's not what we do here. Pillar number 2 of the 3 pillars of nutrition, prioritizing protein. Nobody over consumes protein. Protein is your king macronutrient. Now, maybe you've been on this roller coaster, losing weight, gaining weight. Oftentimes, I bet you're just hungry. Think about this. If you're at a dinner party and let's just say we're having steak, mashed potatoes, rolls, some vegetables, and then cheesecake for dessert. Gosh, that's making me hungry. Think about this. When you finish your main entree and you go and get the cheesecake, and afterwards you say, I could probably eat some more. But ask yourself, does that steak sound appetizing? If it doesn't, you're full. Stop. This strategy alone has helped myself and hundreds of my clients that I've worked with in the past actually keep our calorie take where it needs to be, whether it be in a deficit, whether it be at maintenance, simply because we know, hey, the protein test, if that protein does not sound appetizing, we're done. Now, on to the last pillar, which is controlling your calorie intake. Now, most people, unfortunately, are very aggressive with this, meaning that they're in a calorie deficit that is just simply too large, causing them to overconsume calories on another day and making up for it for the week, which I will touch on in the second pillar, which is a sprint, which is essentially a calorie deficit. But with the last pillar of the 3 pillars of nutrition, it's quite simple to adhere to if you are, 1, consuming a diet that is rich in wholesome, nutrient-dense foods that are very high in volume, high in protein, high in fiber, and low in calorie density compared to most of the ultra-processed foods, which you can have in moderation, and also prioritizing protein, which is your king macronutrient. Now, make sure that you are getting an idea of how many calories that you are consuming. Again, most people are following some sort of commandments where foods are good or bad. Nothing is off limits as long as you are mindful of the overall calorie intake. For example, Cody McIntyre, my client that I showed you previously, he loves to go out to eat with his mom. What he'll typically do is just simply look at the menu, see what the quality of the food is, make sure that he's getting enough protein, and is also mindful of the calorie intake, which is typically provided in the menu. If not, he can simply go into MyFitnessPal or in the Iron Faith app, where he can simply look up what food is on the menu and to see how many calories, how many proteins, carbohydrates, etc. is on there. To wrap up the 3 pillars of nutrition, which is the first pillar of the eternal fat loss method, this is the nutritional hierarchy of importance. Now, if you're somebody who is very confused with nutrition, you've been bombarded with absurd claims from these fad diets, take a look at this and relate it back to the 3 pillars. Dialing in the nutritional hierarchy of importance is very simple when you have the 3 pillars of nutrition in place. One of the pillars, which is controlling your calorie intake, happens to be on there. Now, if you are prioritizing nutrient-dense foods and you're prioritizing protein, dialing in these steps here is actually quite simple. Starting with energy balance. Obviously, when you're consuming a diet rich in protein, high-quality food, controlling your calorie intake is quite simple. Moving on to macronutrients. Now, carbohydrates and fats are interchangeable when it comes to fat loss. When protein and calories are equated, we don't really see any difference. So please don't stress out whether high carb or low carb is the way to go. It ultimately depends on how you feel. So again, if you're somebody who is stuck on, okay, well, what macros am I supposed to do? Try not to stress yourself out too much about it. Go with what feels best for you and which is most sustainable for you. Micronutrients, if you're consuming a diet rich in wholesome foods, you're likely covering a lot of these needs. And if you are deficient in something, I would suggest getting a blood test, taking a look at that. And if you are deficient in something, then obviously eat more foods that have those vitamins and minerals. Nutrient and meal timing, not something to stress about if you're somebody who's just simply looking to be healthy, live longer. But if you are trying to get every edge out of performance, muscle building, strength training, endurance, etc., then that's when you need to be a lot more meticulous with your meal timing. Consuming a nutrient-dense meal every 3 to 4 hours if that is you. And lastly, something that a lot of people focus on, unfortunately, which is not very important, it's maybe like 2 or 3% of the equation, is supplementation. Again, if you have any sort of macronutrient deficiencies, that's when supplementation is very useful. Again, if you're somebody who's really looking to get after performance, I think caffeine is a great stimulant to use pre-workout. And also creatine monohydrate, 5 grams a day, every single day. Very researched, it's safe. That's great for performance, recovery, muscle building, strength training, endurance, etc. Here's an action item for you before I get on to the next 3 pillars. Number 1, make sure that you write down all of the wholesome, nutrient-dense foods that you enjoy. That being the proteins that you like, the carbohydrates that you like, the fruits, veggies, healthy fats, breakfast ideas, lunch ideas, dinner ideas. You'll have a lot to play with, and then start implementing the 3 pillars of nutrition today. And do me a favor, I can't say this enough. Don't stick to any sort of commandments of a named diet. Get out of that diet mindset. Don't label foods as good and bad. Pillar number 2, which is a sprint, and that is simply a calorie deficit. Now, unfortunately, most people are trying to diet all the time. Now, with the sprint method, you're doing it in intervals in which is accommodable to the individual. Now, some people, a sprint is appropriate for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Now, if you're an extreme physique athlete, it's likely going to be anywhere from 12 to 22 weeks. But again, if you're somebody who's just simply looking to be healthy, who is aspiring to actually keep the body fat off, you need to plan your sprints out accordingly. Take it slow. Again, most people are trying to do this all the time without giving themselves enough time to actually sustain the weight loss, which I will elaborate on in the next pillar, which is the cruise. Maybe you're tired of dieting all the time. You're tired of trying to lose weight all of the time. Again, plan your sprints out accordingly. I can't give you the exact time frame in which you should sprint, but I would sit here and think about this. How long have I been trying to lose weight for? And how long have I actually been trying to sustain the weight loss for? Which leads me to the next pillar. Cruise. Now, this is a maintenance phase. This is where we simply try to sustain the weight loss. We can even be in a small surplus. Now, you're probably wondering, how does all this stuff work without being so restrictive? If I'm trying to diet all the time, maybe you were thinking, with the eternal fat loss method, do I have to diet all the time? No, that's where the cruise comes into play. And this is the missing piece of the puzzle for many people. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the Matador study. There were 2 different subject groups. You had one group who was dieting all the time, which they were sprinting all the time. And then in the other group, they were intermittently dieting, which is simply implementing diet breaks. We call them cruises here, where they're just focusing on maintaining their weight loss. What we tend to see is greater adherence and greater results. What we saw in subject number 2 with the diet breaks, with the cruises, they tend to have success with keeping the weight off long term, simply because they were allowing themselves to not sprint all the time. Again, you can't think about this in real life. You can't sprint all the time. And what happens if you're sprinting with nutrition all the time, you're going to have that backlash. So if you were caught in that roller coaster, start implementing cruises now. These are great to plan around social events, weddings, vacations, etc. Looking at Anthony, the guy is a very social guy. He's into real estate, so he's constantly meeting with business partners, with his family, whether that be barbecues, cookouts, weddings, vacations. We always like to plan these cruises around those events in particular. That way we can enjoy ourselves. And again, you don't feel so restricted. When you implement cruises like this, you don't have that I'm on a diet mindset. You can let your hair down just a little bit and incorporate some of your favorite foods. And again, the time frame is individual dependent. Sometimes a cruise is a couple of days, sometimes it's 7 days, sometimes it's 14 days, sometimes it's a month or a couple of months. It ultimately just depends on your goals and where you're at psychologically with all this. So if you're wondering, how do I actually keep the weight off? This is a key component to it. So start implementing cruises today if you are somebody who has never allowed yourself enough time to actually sustain the weight loss. The last and most important pillar, your mindset. You've got the 3 pillars of nutrition: sprint, cruise, repeat, where the mindset comes into play. And you have to ask yourself, why am I doing all this? Why am I eating? Why am I training? I know I don't have training in here, but it's the same concept with nutrition. We eat for purpose, not pleasure. Now, that might sound a little contradictory because I'm saying, hey, all this stuff is possible without feeling so restrictive. Again, you can enjoy the foods that you love in moderation. You don't have to be stuck to any sort of commandments of a fad named elimination diet. You don't have to be on some sort of weird program to get results in the gym. That is not the case at all. You can actually enjoy the approach with training and nutrition, make incredible results, improve your health markers, improve your performance, not feel so restrictive, enjoy your life without having to actually hate it. Again, we're trying to cultivate everlasting habits that last a lifetime and not view diet and exercise as a chore. Imagine that you're enjoying the food that you're eating, you're losing weight consistently. You have these periods where you're able to keep the weight off and stay at a certain body weight. You're able to enjoy social events and have foods that you love in moderation. You don't feel tied down to something. You actually see progress in the gym without spending hours in the gym. And those habits and behaviors that you're developing with diet and exercise are pouring into other areas of your life. Imagine how much better your life would be when you finally break free of the chains of feeling so tied down to some diet or some weird workout program. How can we help you implement the eternal fat loss solution into your lifestyle, hand you an approach to diet, training, cardiovascular activity that is enjoyable and effective, something that you can actually stick to forever? How can we do that for you and help you get off of that never-ending roller coaster of yo-yo dieting, making progress only to lose it all? Instead of investing your most valuable asset, which is your time, into trying to figure all this stuff out, we can take the guesswork out for you and help implement it and get you going and get you making progress within just a couple of weeks. As I've said before, our goal is to help you cultivate everlasting habits and behaviors that you can actually stick to for the long haul. So no more hating the foods that you love, no more spending hours in the gym, no more skipping out on social events or having anxiety around these events. You will have freedom with training and nutrition, and it will no longer be a chore. Now, here's our strategy to get there. It's very simple, very straightforward. For cardiovascular fitness, I love to prescribe daily step goal. For example, Savannah Grasser, she is a police officer, and she gets a lot of steps in each day just from her job. So we incorporate that into her cardiovascular regimen. I know some of you have families, you want to spend time with the family. Guess what? A walk with the family, that is considered cardiovascular activity because you are expending energy and you are increasing your step goal that way. 3 to 5 training mobility sessions per week at 30 to 60 minutes. I know a lot of you live very high stress, very busy lifestyles. If we need to take a minimalist approach to resistance training, by all means, we can most certainly do that with just 3 days a week. If you're somebody who's serious about building muscle mass and building strength, by all means, we can bump up to 4 to 5 days a week. Crystal clear nutritional guidelines. You guessed it. You pick the foods that you eat. We tell you what to eat, when to eat, and how much to eat based off of your dietary preferences. Now, not one size fits all. You might be wondering, well, am I going to get some weird meal plan? Listen, everybody's psychology is different. Some people thrive well with the structured meal plan. Some people thrive well with tracking calories and macros. And then you have some people who thrive well with intuitive eating. We go with what works best for you. So no, you're not on a diet. Environmental design and routine for success. Think about this. When you go to the gas station and you fill your tank up, when you walk in to use the bathroom on the way out, there's donuts, there's candy, there's all kinds of sweets and treats just looking at you. My point is the environments that we live in ultimately dictate the success that we have in our lives, and that pertains to being healthy. And unfortunately, these environments are not favorable for us. We help you navigate through these environments to where you don't have to rely on willpower and discipline when you can just simply make things easy. Sleep and stress management routines. Now, sleep and stress management play a big role in losing body fat and keep it off. And we give you the tools to help optimize your sleep and become stress resilient. Training and cardio. Now, in the Iron Faith app, I give you all of the exercises with a video tutorial of myself explaining how to do the movement. I give you the sets, the reps, the intensity, the rest time, you name it. We use an adaptive training system, and this is how we gamify everything. If you're not familiar with progressive overload, that is simply just being a little bit better than last time. You're able to log all of your workouts, and every time you log a workout, I get a notification, and I'm able to see how you performed in that session. What's really cool about this is that you can preload your previous stats from the previous session and see where you were then and how you can improve going forward. Movement pattern correction. Instead of investing hundreds of dollars into a personal trainer, you can simply record yourself performing a set, send it over to me, and I'll provide you feedback to make sure that you're getting the very best out of these movements. Everything is customized dependent upon the access to equipment that you have. You might be wondering, well, I want to work out at home. I don't have time to go to the gym. No worries. I've got plenty of clients who work out at home with a set of dumbbells. Cardio is prescribed based on your preference. I'm not going to ask you to do low intensity steady state if you don't enjoy that. I'm not going to ask you to do HIIT training if you don't enjoy that. I'm not going to ask you to run if you don't enjoy that. There's several different routes to take to get the same outcome, and we're going to go with what's most enjoyable for you. I also have educational courses in the app to explain why we're doing what we're doing. Nutrition. Now, again, you get to pick the foods that you enjoy. In the inquiry form, you tell me everything that you like: protein, carbohydrates, fats, fruits, vegetables, breakfast options that you've enjoyed, lunch options that you've enjoyed, dinner options that you've enjoyed. And I provide you with a meal plan with a variety of options to choose from, again, based off of your dietary preferences. And I have to say this again, if you're worried about having to stick to a diet or stick to a meal plan, if you don't respond well to that approach, there are other options. Again, we can go with calorie and macro tracking. We can go with intuitive eating guidelines. Again, we go with what is best for the individual. You're still wondering, well, how do I navigate through some of these social events? How am I able to eat out? How am I able to go on vacation and enjoy myself? Along with implementing cruises, I also provide you with restaurant and fast food guides to help you navigate through these specific scenarios. So you don't have to worry about losing any progress and you can enjoy the experience. Shopping lists and meal prep guide. If you're not familiar with how any of this stuff works, no worries. Again, I provide you the resources on how to navigate through those specific scenarios. And lastly, nutrition courses explaining why we're doing what we're doing, packed full of value because I want you to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it. That way you can cultivate everlasting habits and behaviors to lose body fat, keep it off, enjoy the foods that you love, go to social events with confidence, not have to worry about losing all your progress, and thrive. Just like your walk with Christ, doing this walk alone with your health and wellness is rather hard. You'll be far more effective when you're plugged into a community of like-minded individuals and also having somebody to report to hold you accountable and hold you to a high standard. Now here's our impossible to fail accountability system. When you first log into the app, what you'll see is a daily habit tracker. I have my clients focus on 3 to 5 critical tasks each day, and I guarantee if they execute on these each day, they will move forward closer to their desired outcome. For example, Anthony, all I had him focus on initially was hitting a daily step goal, drinking a gallon of water, and hitting his protein goal. He is able to check or X whether he completed the habit or not, hit complete and send. And again, I get a notification to make sure that we are both on the same page and that he is doing what he is supposed to be doing. Daily Q&A support. This is my livelihood. This is what I do. I have a SWAT team mentality with responding to my clients. You'll typically get a response within 12 hours from me. Group chat support. I love to plug you in with like minds. For example, I have a Christian CEOs group chat. I have a meathead chat, those who are looking to build muscle and really optimize their performance and recovery. And I also have a couple of different chats, such as a gals chat. There's a lot of former collegiate athletes in there, a lot of military first responders. So I will plug you into the community that best suits you so you don't have to feel alone in this. Instead of sending you out a 6-month or 12-month PDF saying, how about it? I actually monitor you on a weekly basis. So every week, what you'll do is submit a weekly progress report to me, which is our weekly check-in. It'll ask you a series of questions. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your sleep quality? How would you rate your digestion? How would you rate your stress levels? How would you rate your performance in the gym? How well did you adhere to your nutrition plan? Do you have any questions for me? How can I best serve you as a coach? I'll send you a Loom video like the one I'm recording right now with feedback and any adjustments that I made to your plan. So I'm constantly monitoring you on a daily and a weekly basis to make sure that you are in alignment with your goals. And lastly, you'll get a monthly game plan meeting where we assess your progress. We'll discuss what went well, what didn't go well, and what we can do to improve going forward. If you want to take the guesswork out of everything and you want to be assured that you're on the right path, by all means, this is the program for you. And I have to reiterate, I work with men and women of faith who aspire to be personally excellent. I don't aspire to work with anybody who is lazy and does not want to be personally excellent. So now you have 3 different options. Number 1, you can join the program. We can instill the eternal fat loss method into your lifestyle and get you to that desired outcome a lot faster. Number 2, you can invest the time and energy to try to figure this stuff out yourself. And if you feel confident enough to do that, I would encourage you to go do so. And lastly, you join the program, you don't get results, and you get a full refund. We are so confident in our system that if you do every single thing we ask, you log the daily habit tracker every single day, you don't miss one weekly check-in, and if you are not satisfied with your results within 45 days, we'll give you a full refund. Let's say you're stuck on a roller coaster. You can't seem to maintain progress. You hate the diet strategy that you're currently on. You don't enjoy training. You don't enjoy cardiovascular activity. And you view diet and exercise as a chore. Now, if we could get you off of that roller coaster, just ask yourself, what would that do for you? How would that change your life? And I'm here to tell you that that is the minimum that we will deliver for you. So if you're a man or woman of faith who is aspiring to be personally excellent, you want to learn how to lose body fat, keep it off eternally, enjoy the foods that you love, not have to give up your social life, not have to view diet and exercise as a chore, by all means, book in a free strategy session with me. We'll assess where you're at currently, where you're trying to go, and we'll discuss the strategy on how we can help you. If this system resonates with you and you want to be a part of an impactful community full of like minds to walk alongside with, by all means, book a free strategy session with me. Thank you for sticking around to the end. Stay healthy and God bless.